She walked into Judge Judy's courtroom like she owned the place. Arrogant, untouchable, a woman who'd spent her entire life bending rules and people to her will. But within 60 seconds, Judge Judy obliterated her story with a single document. The defendant's face turned red. Her hands started shaking. And then, she lost it completely. She screamed. She cursed. She called the judge corrupt, on live television, in front of millions of viewers. Judge Judy's expression turned stone cold. The gavel came down like thunder. $100,000 fine! But what happened in the next 5 seconds left the entire courtroom in absolute shock. But before we get into it, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe for more shocking courtroom moments. The gavel's echo is still vibrating through the air. The defendant's scream is still caught between her teeth, and the entire courtroom sits frozen, waiting to see what Judge Judy will do next. The moment stretches like a wire pulled too tight. The lights above flicker, not from electricity, but from the weight of the silence that follows arrogance. The defendant stands rigid behind the podium, her face flushed, her breath uneven, her eyes wide, with the unmistakable panic of someone who went too far and realized it too late. But Judge Judy does not move. She watches the defendant with the stillness of someone who has seen every shape of entitlement, but never one quite this bold. Her hands rest flat on the bench, not clenched, not shaking, steady, controlled. An anchor in a room filled with tension sharp enough to cut skin. The audience shifts in their seats, the rustling fabric sounding impossibly loud in the quiet. The bailiff takes one step forward, boots pressing against the courtroom floor with a soft, deliberate thud. Even the cameras seem to steady their mechanical hum, drawn toward the confrontation like metal pulled to a magnet. The defendant swallows hard. Her earlier fury, a fire that consumed logic, crumbles into ash. She tries to say something, but her voice collapses before it reaches her lips. Her fingers twitch as she wipes sweat from her brow. She glances around, searching for someone, anyone, who looks like they might take her side. No one does. Judge Judy finally leans back, eyes narrowing just enough to signal the change in atmosphere. "Are you finished?" she asks, her voice calm, almost quiet. But in that calm sits a warning no one mistakes. The defendant opens her mouth again, her body trembling with a mix of shame and stubbornness. I did not mean..." Judge Judy raises a single finger. The room obeys. Silence returns instantly. "You called me corrupt," she says, "on camera, in my courtroom." Her tone does not rise, but something in the defendant seems to shrink anyway. Behind her, the plaintiff watches with a restrained, aching composure. Her hands grip the edges of her paperwork like a lifeline, knuckles white, eyes wet but steady. She does not smile. Even now, there is no satisfaction, only hurt. Judge Judy turns slightly, just enough for her voice to reach the clerk. "Bring me the file." A murmur ripples through the audience. The defendant stiffens. The clerk steps through the side door, holding a manila folder. Thick, heavy, worn at the edges like it has been opened and closed many times. She places it gently on Judy's desk, the sound soft but piercing. The defendant's eyes lock onto it. Fear flashes openly now. Judge Judy taps the cover with one finger. "This should answer every question your behavior created today." The defendant's breath catches. Judge Judy slides the folder toward her, and the defendant whispers, barely audible, Where did you get that?" The folder touches the desk, and the defendant flinches like it might burst open and swallow her whole. Her eyes stay locked on the cardboard edge as if the truth could burn her from the outside. Judge Judy's hand rests on the file for a moment, not opening it, just feeling its weight, the way someone tests the heft of a consequence before delivering it. The room waits, breath pulled tight, as the defendant tries to anchor herself in the hollow confidence she carried into the courtroom. It is gone now. Judy lifts the folder with slow, deliberate motion. The thick papers inside shift with a soft, unsettling rustle, like whispers from the past she hoped was buried. The defendant's throat tightens. Her hands grip the podium so hard her knuckles turn ashen white. "Let us see," Judge Judy says, "what the facts have to say about your behavior today." Her tone is calm, but the calmness feels colder than anger. The plaintiff's eyes fall to the floor, overwhelmed by memories she did not want revisited. The betrayal, the excuses, the night she realized the person she trusted had been using her like a stepping stone. She exhales softly as Judy opens the file, bracing herself. Page 1. The first document slides forward, a financial statement. Judge Judy tilts it toward the defendant. "You claimed," she begins, "that you never touched her money, that you never handled anything involving her accounts." The defendant nods too quickly, almost frantic. "Yes, because I did not. I swear." Judy taps the paper twice. The sound is small, but it echoes like a hammer. "Then explain this," she says. The defendant blinks hard. Her eyes dart across the page. Her jaw clenches. She opens her mouth, but no words arrive, not even lies, because her handwriting is staring right back at her. A signature in ink, her signature, twice, once clean and natural, once slanted, jagged, forced. The plaintiff's quiet voice breaks the stifling quiet. "She said she never even saw that form," she murmurs, not in anger, but in heartbreak. The defendant snaps her head toward her. "You do not know anything about this." "Stop talking," Judge Judy orders, and the command slices through the room like a surgical blade. The defendant bites down on her lip, chest rising in shallow breaths. Judge Judy lifts the page higher. "Two signatures," she says softly. "One genuine, one forged, and unless you have a remarkable ability to mimic yourself poorly, one of these is evidence of fraud." The murmurs rise again, from the audience, from the plaintiff, even from the bailiff who shifts forward once more, sensing the unraveling. The defendant stumbles over her words. I did not, someone must have, my account was hacked, this is." Judy closes the folder with a measured, decisive thud. "Enough. I am not interested in excuses." The defendant's eyes widen, glossy with fear she cannot hide anymore. Judge Judy leans forward, eyes sharpening. "Because this is not the only document in here." The defendant's breath stops. Judy turns to the clerk. "Bring in the messages she submitted." The defendant whispers, voice cracking. "What messages?" Her voice trembles before she even opens her mouth, and for the first time since entering this courtroom, her confidence is not just fading. It is fracturing. The clerk steps forward, holding a stack of printed messages wrapped in a rubber band. They do not look dangerous. Thin sheets of paper, light enough for a breeze to move. But when she places them on the judge's bench, the defendant recoils as though someone dropped a weapon between them. Judge Judy unwraps the band with slow, surgical precision. The tension snaps like plastic. "These," she says, lifting the first page, "are the messages the plaintiff submitted, sent from your number, your device, your account." The defendant shakes her head instantly, too quickly. No, those are spoofed, faked. Anyone can—" "Look at me," Judy says. The defendant freezes. "You threatened her," Judy continues. "You pressured her to stay silent, and you told her she would regret it if she ever brought this to court." The words echo across the room, hanging like a storm cloud over the defendant's shrinking posture. The plaintiff does not look up. Her hands tighten around the hem of her jacket, as if holding herself together. The memory of those messages, the late-night dread, the pressure, the fear, presses visibly on her shoulders. The defendant finally musters a burst of defiance. "She lied. She twisted everything because she wants to ruin me. She always envied my success." Her voice wobbles, the once sharp confidence collapsing under weight it can no longer hold. Judge Judy does not so much as blink. "Success built on what?" she asks quietly. "Manipulation? Deception? Fraud?" The defendant swallows. Hard. She looks at the messages Judy now reads aloud, each line a cut. "Do not make me come find you. You owe me. You would be nothing without me." The courtroom shifts, the air turning heavier with every word. Even the bailiff's jaw tightens, not in anger but recognition. He has seen this pattern before. Entitlement morphing into intimidation, intimidation into fear. The defendant whispers, "I did not mean those. But her voice is too thin, too frayed to sound like anything but guilt trying to wear a disguise. Judge Judy studies her quietly. That silence, unbroken, unwavering, does more damage than any raised voice could. The defendant's breath falters under it. Her shoulders collapse inward an inch at a time. The plaintiff finally speaks, voice soft but ringing with truth. "I just wanted my life back." The room goes still. Even the defendant looks shaken by the simplicity of the plea. Judge Judy places the messages aside. "There is more," she says. "Something else you sent her. Something you did not expect would ever be played in this courtroom." The defendant's lips part. No sound. Judy nods to the clerk. "Play the recording." A click. A soft burst of static. Then, her own laughter fills the room. And just before the words begin, the defendant whispers, pale and trembling, "Turn it off, please." Her laughter spills from the speakers, sharp, careless, mean. It fills the courtroom like a poison gas no one saw coming, and the defendant folds in on herself, as if trying to hide from her own voice. The audio crackles for a moment before settling into clarity. The room is so still that even the static feels loud. Then the defendant's recorded voice cuts through the quiet, filled with a confidence she no longer possesses. "Please, she is clueless," her voice crows, dripping smugness. "I could take every penny she has, and she would still thank me for being in her life." A wave passes through the courtroom, disgust, shock, disbelief. People shift back in their seats as if the sound itself were something physical they needed distance from. The plaintiff's eyes close, pain flickering across her face in a quiet, unbearable flash. The defendant shakes her head violently. That is edited. You do not understand the context." "No one needs context for cruelty," Judge Judy replies, voice low enough to make the defendant shrink further. The recording continues. "She will never take me to court. She is too scared. And even if she did," her recorded self laughs again, louder this time, "I always win." The bailiff glances at Judge Judy. The judge does not look at him. Her eyes stay fixed on the defendant, who now clutches the podium, like it might keep her from collapsing. The plaintiff finally looks up, silent tears tracing a path she does not bother to wipe away. The defendant begins to mutter excuses. "I did not mean it. I was venting. I was upset. People say things they do not." Judge Judy lifts a hand, silencing her instantly. The next part of the recording lands like a blade. "If she talks," the defendant's voice says coldly, "I will make sure everyone knows her secrets. She will not dare cross me." Gasps erupt. The plaintiff covers her mouth, trembling. The defendant's face drains of all color. Judge Judy stops the recording with a firm tap. The silence afterward is unbearable, raw, exposed, electric with judgment. "Is that your voice?" Judy asks. The defendant cannot speak. She nods once. "Is that your threat?" Another nod, smaller, shakier. Judge Judy leans back, folding her hands. "Your behavior today makes sense in the context of that call. People who rely on intimidation are always the first to panic when truth arrives." The defendant's breathing becomes erratic. But Judy is not finished. She slides a single sheet from the folder, one the defendant has not yet seen. The paper is crisp, clean, devastating. "Should I tell them?" Judy says slowly, "what you did after this call?" The defendant's eyes widen. "No, please." Judy holds the page up, letting the courtroom see the bold header at the top. "Witness tampering report." The audience gasps again. Even the cameras seem to tighten their mechanical focus. Judy looks the defendant dead in the eye. "You attempted to intimidate a witness last night, and I have the proof." Her mouth falls open before she can stop it. Judge Judy holds the witness tampering report like a mirror, and the defendant finally sees what she looks like under her own lies. The page trembles slightly between Judge Judy's fingers, not from her hand, but from the power it holds. The defendant watches it the way someone watches an approaching tidal wave, frozen, small, and desperately unprepared. Judy sets the document down with care, smoothing its edge like she is preparing a surgical instrument. "This," she says, "was sent anonymously to the producers late last night. Screenshots, messages, time-stamped, verified." The defendant shakes her head, but her denial no longer carries force, only fear. "Anyone could create that, anyone. This is a setup." "No," Judy cuts in, her voice quiet and sharp. "This is a pattern." The bailiff steps closer, not aggressively, but instinctively, sensing a person coming apart. The defendant backs into the podium, fingers clawing at the wood. Her breathing quickens, uneven and shallow. Judy picks up the first screenshot. "You messaged the witness at 11:42 p.m. You told her to keep her mouth shut and that you would handle anyone who tried to hurt your case." She lifts her eyes slowly. "Does that sound familiar?" The defendant's lips quiver. "I did not mean, it is not what it looks like." "Stop," Judy says softly. The single word freezes the room. The plaintiff watches with her hands clasped near her heart, her expression a mixture of relief and sorrow. She is not celebrating the defendant's unraveling, she is grieving it. Judy holds up the next screenshot, and here you tell her she will regret it if she shows up to court. That is intimidation. She flips to another. This one, a threat, and another, and another. Each page lands with a soft slap that grows heavier, louder, more condemning. The defendant's posture collapses, shoulders buckling inward, as if she is trying to disappear into her own shadow. She stares ahead, pupils shrinking, breath shaking. Arrogance cannot shield her anymore. Entitlement cannot resurrect the person she pretended to be. "Your empire," Judy says, "was never built on truth. It was built on fear, on manipulation, on convincing people they were lucky to know you." The defendant looks down, tears gathering, but not falling. She is fighting them, the last brittle attempt at dignity. The plaintiff steps forward, voice small. "I did not want any of this. I just wanted her to stop hurting people." The defendant closes her eyes, pained by a truth she never expected to hear spoken aloud. Judge Judy turns to the plaintiff. "You brought something else today, did you not? Something you hesitated to submit earlier." The plaintiff nods, reaching into her bag with trembling fingers. A single item emerges, small, thin, wrapped in a protective sleeve. She holds it delicately, like a wound she has carried too long. The defendant's eyes snap open, terrified. Judy gestures. "Please bring it forward." The plaintiff steps closer, revealing the object, a photograph that instantly drains the last color from the defendant's face. The photograph slides across the bench with a soft whisper. But its impact hits the room like a tremor. The defendant stares at it as if it has fangs. Judge Judy lifts the photo, holding it just high enough for the defendant to see, but not yet for the rest of the courtroom. The lighting above catches the glossy surface, creating a glint, like a truth trying to break through. "Do you recognize this?" Judy asks. The defendant swallows, eyes darting from the photo to the plaintiff, then back again. Her lips move, but no words emerge, only a shallow breath that sounds like surrender. The plaintiff stands small but resolute beside the bench. Her fingers are still trembling from the weight of bringing this piece of evidence into the open. "She told me she never went there," the plaintiff says softly. "She swore it." Judy finally rotates the photograph so the courtroom can see it. A collective gasp rolls through the room. It shows the defendant standing in the plaintiff's storage unit, a place she claimed she had never visited, clutching a box the plaintiff reported missing months ago. The defendant's face in the photo carries a smile, not a happy smile, a knowing one, the smile of someone who believes they will never face consequences. Now, sitting under Judge Judy's stare, that same smile feels like a ghost haunting her face. The defendant stumbles backward, one hand gripping the podium to keep herself upright. It is not what it looks like. Someone must have taken that. Someone edited." "Stop." Judy's voice cuts through her panic like a scalpel. "Describe the background." The defendant blinks. Hard. "What? Why?" "Describe it," Judy repeats, leaning forward. "If you were never there, you will not know it." A thin bead of sweat forms at the defendant's temple. She stares at the photo, pupils trembling. "It is a room. A plain room. Judy raises an eyebrow. Is that so? Because I see a very distinctive object behind you, something the plaintiff mentioned when she filed her claim months ago. Everyone leans in. It is a metal shelving unit. Bright red, uncommon, impossible to miss. The plaintiff wipes her eyes, her voice cracking just slightly. I painted that shelf myself. She told me she did not even know what the inside looked like. The defendant hesitates, flounders, collapses. Her voice, once sharp and aggressive, now falls apart. Fine, she whispers. Fine. I will tell you what really happened. A ripple of tension spreads across the courtroom. The bailiff inhales. The audience freezes. Even the overhead lights seem to pause mid-flicker. Judge Judy does not move. She waits. She knows better than to interrupt a story unraveling under its own weight. But the defendant does not start confessing. She only stares at the photograph and breaks. Her voice trembles. You want the truth? Then you had better be ready for all of it. And the room braces, knowing the truth from her has never come without a cost. If you were sitting in that courtroom, would you believe her sudden shift? Or is this just another mask she is trying to wear? Her breath shakes, her eyes lower. But something about her posture, too calculated, too controlled, makes the room realize this confession is not surrender. It is strategy. The defendant lifts her head slowly, letting the silence stretch long enough to pull the room's attention back into her orbit. It is the oldest trick in manipulation. Make people wait, and they will lean closer. Her shoulders slump, her chin trembles, her voice softens into something almost fragile. I did make mistakes, she whispers, letting each syllable quiver in the air. I am not proud of everything I have done. The audience shifts, unsure whether to feel pity or nausea. Judge Judy studies her with the expression of someone reading a book she has already finished. The plaintiff watches too, tears drying on her cheeks, confusion mixing with disbelief. She has seen this side of the defendant before. The gentle mask that appears only when consequences do. The defendant presses a hand to her chest as though steadying a wound. She gestures vaguely toward the plaintiff. She depended on me. She leaned on me for everything. I tried to help. I tried to be there. But she expected too much. The plaintiff's brow furrows, pained. It is a quiet heartbreak to watch someone rewrite your history right in front of you. Judge Judy lifts a hand. Are you confessing? She asks calmly. Or performing? The defendant blinks rapidly, her voice catching in an orchestrated tremor. I am telling the truth. My truth. I felt used. I felt like she only kept me around because she needed favors. The plaintiff's voice breaks through, soft but firm. You volunteered those favors. You insisted on helping. You said it made you feel needed. And she exploited that, the defendant screams, her fragile act cracking under its own weight. The courtroom recoils. So does her performance. Her breathing becomes jagged again, but not from fear, from frustration. The story she is spinning is not landing the way she hoped. She shifts tactics rapidly, stringing half excuses, half blame, all desperation. I took the box because she told me I could borrow it. The messages were jokes. The signature, maybe I did sign it, but she pressured me. She always pressures me. Each claim contradicts the last. Judge Judy narrows her eyes. In the last 30 seconds, she says, you have given 4 different explanations for the same action. Do you know what that tells me? The defendant's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. It tells me, Judy continues, that you are not confessing. You are negotiating. The defendant stares, stunned, caught mid-lie, mid-act, mid-collapse. Judy leans forward slightly, her voice steady and unshakably confident. And I am not here to negotiate with someone who refuses to tell the truth. A hush falls, deep enough to feel like the room itself is holding its breath. Then Judy glances toward the clerk. But that is all right. You are not the only one who knows what happened. The defendant's head snaps up, panic flooding her expression. Judy nods to the bailiff. Bring in the witness. The defendant whispers, choking on fear. No, not them. The side door opens with a slow, echoing creak, and the defendant's entire body stiffens. One look at her face tells the courtroom everything. Whoever is about to walk in, she never wanted them here. The bailiff steps aside, and a man enters. His posture is tense, his shoulders drawn inward, as if he is walking into a storm he has avoided for years. His eyes scan the room briefly before landing on the defendant, and when they do, something breaks quietly inside him. It is her brother. A collective murmur ripples across the courtroom. Surprise, curiosity, the shock of recognition. The plaintiff's brows lift, startled. Judge Judy remains still, watching the emotional geography unfold like a practiced cartographer. The defendant takes half a step backward. "No," she whispers, voice cracking. "Why is he here? He should not be here." Her brother approaches the witness stand slowly. His hands tremble as he adjusts the microphone. He cannot seem to look directly at his sister. Everything about him, his ringing fingers, his clenched jaw, the sheen in his eyes, betrays an inner war. Judge Judy begins calmly. "State your name for the record." He does. His voice is soft, strained, but clear. "And your relationship to the defendant?" He hesitates. The silence stretches. Then, "I am her brother." The defendant's eyes glisten with panic. "You are not supposed to be involved in this," she hisses. Judge Judy raises a hand. "You will remain silent while he testifies." The brother swallows, nodding toward the judge with gratitude before turning back to the courtroom. "I did not want to come," he admits. "But when I saw everything happening, I could not keep protecting her." The defendant's breath catches like a snapped thread. She shakes her head violently. "Protecting me? You are lying. You are jealous, always jealous." Her voice fractures as the bailiff steps closer, a silent reminder to control herself. Her brother continues, voice trembling but resolute. "She told me she lost the money, that she misplaced it, that the plaintiff was accusing her unfairly." He pauses, gathering courage. "But it was not true. She moved the money into one of her personal accounts. She told me not to say anything." The room reacts in a wave, gasps, murmurs, shifting seats. The plaintiff covers her mouth, tears forming again, not from fear this time, but validation. The defendant collapses into the podium, face draining of color. "Stop, please stop." Her brother's voice cracks. "I am tired of lying for you." Judge Judy watches him with a measured, almost softened gaze. "Is there anything else we should know?" He nods. A long, heartbreaking nod that says more than words. "When she said she lost it, she had not. She hid it. She hid all of it." The plaintiff exhales sharply. The courtroom freezes. The defendant trembles, her earlier rage replaced by pure, paralyzing dread. "You do not understand," she whispers. "I was going to put it back." But her brother shakes his head. "It was never about the money. You liked the control." The defendant covers her face, unable to withstand the truth spoken aloud by the one person she always thought she could manipulate into silence. Judge Judy leans forward, voice calm but unforgiving. "And what happened to the money?" Her brother meets the judge's eyes. "She still has it." He looks at his sister, voice barely above a whisper. "Tell them what you did with the money." Her brother's words linger in the air like smoke that refuses to clear. The defendant does not breathe, and the courtroom waits, understanding that what comes next will change everything. Judge Judy allows the silence to stretch, letting the truth settle into every corner of the room. It is not a silence of confusion. It is recognition, an entire courtroom seeing the defendant without her defenses, illusions, or charm. Her brother sits rigid in the witness chair, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles whiten. He looks as though he aged years in minutes. His gaze stays lowered, not out of shame for what he revealed, but for the years he spent protecting someone who never protected him in return. The defendant shakes her head in small, desperate motions. "You do not understand," she whispers, voice thin as paper. "I was going to fix it. I just needed time." Her brother finally looks at her. His eyes are soft, almost grieving. "You had time. Months. You did not fix it because you did not want to. liked the control. Those words cut deeper than any accusation Judge Judy has made so far. The plaintiff stiffens, tears slipping down her cheeks, not loud, not dramatic, quiet. The kind of grief that arrives when your worst fear is confirmed. The betrayal was intentional. Judge Judy folds her hands. Where is the money now? The defendant hesitates, body trembling. I moved it. Judy waits. Between accounts. Which accounts? Another hesitation, a longer one. The audience leans forward as if the answer is a stone balancing on the edge of her lips. My personal ones, she finally whispers. Her brother bows his head, as if hearing her speak the truth stings more than knowing it privately. The plaintiff lets out a shaky exhale, relief and heartbreak tangled together. Judge Judy's voice is steady, measured. So you did not lose the money? You did not accidentally transfer it. You did not misplace it. You moved it because you believed you were entitled to it. The defendant closes her eyes, shoulders curling inward. Judy continues, and when questioned, you lied. When challenged, you intimidated. When confronted, you blamed. And now, when exposed, you want sympathy. The defendant wipes a tear with the back of her trembling hand. I was not trying to hurt anyone. I just wanted to win something for once. Her brother stares at her, a raw ache flickering in his eyes. You did not want to win. You wanted power. The words land heavily. The defendant visibly breaks, sobs rising but strangled down, almost as if she is not crying from remorse, but from the collapse of the world she built on lies. Judge Judy looks at her brother. Is there anything else we need to know about the money? He nods slowly. Yes. She transferred it again last week. A murmur erupts. The defendant's eyes widen in pure panic. Please, do not. Her brother finishes softly. Into an account she did not think anyone would find. Judge Judy turns sharply toward the defendant. Then let us discuss the account you tried to hide from this court. The defendant's breath catches, because she knows exactly which account Judy means. The defendant's breath stutters. Not from anger this time, but realization. Realization that every lie she thought was safely hidden is now standing under the courtroom lights with her. Judge Judy does not raise her voice. She does not need to. The quiet in her tone does the work of 1,000 accusations. This account you attempted to hide, she says, is not just a mistake. It is a pattern, and patterns tell the truth long before people do. The defendant's shoulders shake. Her hands tremble against the wood of the podium. She opens her mouth to deny it again, but the words collapse before reaching air. Her brother's testimony shattered the part of her that believed she could out-talk the truth. The plaintiff watches with soft devastation. There is no triumph in her face, only the ache of someone who once cared too deeply for the person unraveling before her. Judge Judy lifts a printed sheet from the file, a bank ledger. Bleak lines of numbers, transfers, dates, evidence. She turns it toward the defendant. This shows you moved the plaintiff's money into your private account last week, after you had already been notified of this court date. A murmur ripples across the gallery. The defendant squeezes her eyes shut, as if darkness could shield her from the consequences. I was going to put it back, she whispers. I swear I was. I just needed more time. I was drowning, and no one cared. Her brother leans forward, voice strained. We did care. You just refused to let anyone in unless it benefited you. She flinches, hard. Judy watches her closely, not with cruelty, but with the clarity of someone who has seen this exact kind of collapse many times. Why did you take the money? She asks quietly. The defendant's lips quiver. Because she always had everything, she mutters, barely audible. People liked her, trusted her. I wanted to feel that. Just once. Her voice breaks at the end, a raw sound of someone discovering their own vulnerability in public. The plaintiff's breath trembles. She clutches her hands together, the sting of betrayal sharpening with every word. I never wanted to be above you, she whispers. I loved you like family. The defendant covers her mouth, tears streaming now. Not delicate tears, not performative tears, but the messy, involuntary collapse of someone losing the last emotional shield they had. Judge Judy speaks softly, the tone shifting, still firm, but touched with something like recognition. Wanting to be seen does not justify hurting others. It never has. The defendant nods, but it is small, broken, confused. A nod of someone realizing she cannot shape the truth anymore. It is shaping her. Her brother wipes his face, voice hoarse. Tell them all of it, not the excuses, the truth. The defendant looks up. Her eyes, red, hollow, defeated, meet his. And for a moment, the courtroom sees something they have not seen from her before. Fear. Not of punishment, but of herself. Judge Judy leans forward, folding her hands. It is time, she says, to stop peeling away excuses and reveal what you have been hiding at your core. The defendant inhales sharply, because she knows exactly what truth Judy is about to pull from her. Her eyes lift slowly, wide, red, stripped bare of arrogance. For the first time, she is not building a story. She is breaking under one. The defendant stands alone in a silence so heavy it seems to press into her ribs. The courtroom lights cast a pale glow across her face, revealing every crack in the mask she spent years perfecting. Her breath quivers. Her hands curl at her sides like she is afraid of what they might release if she relaxes. Judge Judy waits, calm, steady, unwavering. The room waits with her. The defendant swallows hard, voice trembling as she begins. I did not take her money because I needed it. I took it because I wanted to feel like someone cared whether I had it or not. A soft gasp breaks from the gallery. She wipes a tear, but more follow, slipping down her cheeks with a rawness that has nothing to do with manipulation. My whole life, she continues, I have watched people trust her, believe her, love her, and every time I stood next to her, I felt invisible. The plaintiff's eyes water, not from pity, from understanding a wound she never knew existed. I thought, the defendant says, voice cracking, that if I could take something of hers, just once, it would make me feel powerful, important. She shakes her head slowly, but it just made me feel empty, and ashamed, and trapped. Her shoulders tremble. She grips the podium as if the truth itself might knock her over. Judge Judy leans in slightly, not aggressively, but with the presence of someone guiding a confession from its last hiding place. So you kept digging. More lies, more pressure, more intimidation. The defendant nods weakly. I kept thinking I could fix it before anyone found out, before she found out, before you found out. A sob rises, small and helpless. But every day it got worse and I could not stop. The plaintiff closes her eyes, tears falling silently. She is not just hearing the truth, she is grieving what it cost both of them. The defendant forces herself to continue. I hurt people because I did not want to be the one who was always hurting. She presses a shaking hand to her chest. But that is all I ever was. A wound pretending to be a person. A long silence follows. It is not disbelief. It is heartbreak. Judge Judy folds her hands, studying the woman who stands before her, not as a defendant now, but as a human being stripped of every illusion. There is one more truth, Judy says quietly, one you have avoided longer than all the others. The defendant stiffens. Everyone feels the shift. The air grows tight. Heavy. What truth? She whispers, voice hollow. Judy reaches into the file. She pulls out a document with a familiar header, one the defendant hoped would never see light. The courtroom straightens instinctively, sensing the impact about to drop. Judy lays the paper flat, her gaze never leaving the defendant. This, she says, is the statement you drafted to blame your own brother for the theft. Gasps explode across the room. The defendant's knees nearly buckle. Judge Judy's voice turns cold and unshakably final. You were not just hiding money. You were preparing to sacrifice the only person still protecting you. The paper lies between them like a fault line. One truth too many, one betrayal too far. And for the first time she looks truly afraid of herself. The defendant's knees wobble, and she grips the podium to stay upright. Her breath shudders in broken intervals, like her lungs no longer trust her to deserve air. The document, the one she drafted to frame her own brother, sits exposed before the court, glowing beneath the white lights like a confession carved in stone. Her brother's face crumples. He looks away, not in anger, but in a grief so deep it folds his shoulders inward. The plaintiff covers her mouth, whispering something too soft to hear. The courtroom audience doesn't breathe. Even the cameras seem to soften their mechanical hum. Judge Judy lets the silence linger, her eyes steady on the defendant. "You were prepared," she says slowly, "to destroy the person who came here today to save you." The defendant shakes her head weakly, tears blurring her vision. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't going to give it to anyone. I just wrote it because I panicked." Judy's voice sharpens, not loud, but cutting through the lie like scalpel to flesh. "You wrote dates, you wrote specifics, you wrote accusations detailed enough to ruin him." "I wasn't going to submit it," the defendant cries, voice breaking into a raw plea. I was scared. I didn't know what else to do." Her brother finally looks at her. His eyes shimmer, wet, devastated, not from betrayal alone, but from the realization of how far she was willing to fall. "All I ever did was protect you," he says softly. "I thought maybe you'd do the same for me someday." His words collapse her completely. She sobs, messy, desperate, unrestrained. The kind of sob that comes not from guilt, but from the unbearable weight of being seen for who she truly is. Her hands shake as she reaches slightly toward him, but he flinches, not dramatically, but enough. Enough to show that something inside him has finally broken. The plaintiff watches them with a wounded stillness. Her expression is not triumphant, never triumphant, but deeply, painfully human. Judge Judy's tone changes, not cruel, not angry, just firm, anchored, final. "This," she says, gesturing to the document, "is what happens when arrogance rots from the inside. It convinces you that the truth can be bent, that people are tools, that consequences are negotiable." The defendant lowers her head, tears dripping onto the podium. "But consequences," Judy says, "are not negotiable." The courtroom absorbs those words with a collective inhale. The defendant whispers, voice cracking, "I don't know how to fix any of this." For a moment, just a moment, her vulnerability feels real. Not a tactic, not a performance. A wound laid open before the world. Judge Judy softens, barely, but enough that compassion flickers behind her stern gaze. "You cannot fix what you refuse to face, and until today, you have faced nothing." The defendant's shoulders collapse inward, as if she finally understands the cost of her choices. Judy turns toward the plaintiff. "It is time to hear from the person you hurt most." The defendant looks up, eyes widening with dread. Judge Judy nods to the plaintiff. "Please step forward and tell this courtroom what her actions cost you." She steps forward, not with anger, not with triumph, but with the quiet strength of someone who has carried the truth alone for far too long. And suddenly, the courtroom feels smaller. The plaintiff stands at the podium, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusts the microphone. She wipes a tear with the back of her hand, not to erase emotion but to steady herself. When she looks at Judge Judy, there is no fear left, only resolve. "Tell us," Judy says gently, "what her actions cost you." The plaintiff exhales, a soft, fragile breath, and begins. "At first," she says, voice unsteady, "I didn't even know anything was wrong. I trusted her completely. She was my friend, my closest friend." Her eyes flick briefly toward the defendant, who looks away in shame. "I let her into my home. I let her into my life. I shared everything with her." A hush blankets the room. "I work 2 jobs, the plaintiff continues. "I save every penny. That money she took, it wasn't just numbers in an account. It was my safety, my future. It was supposed to go toward my mom's medical bills and toward a deposit for a safer place to live." The defendant's breathing accelerates, silent panic spreading across her features. The plaintiff's voice cracks, but she pushes forward. When I realized the money was missing, I blamed myself. I thought I must have mismanaged it somehow. I thought I had made a mistake. She swallows. I thought maybe I deserved it. Gasps ripple through the gallery. Her brother closes his eyes, devastated. The plaintiff steadies her voice. And then, when I confronted her, she made me feel crazy. She said I was paranoid, said I was ungrateful, said I was trying to make her look bad for attention. Her hands tighten on the podium. She told me no one would ever believe me because she was the responsible one. The defendant's face crumples further, remorse blooming in painful, jagged waves. I started having panic attacks. The plaintiff's voice softens to a thread. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. I felt like everything in my world was balancing on a string she kept cutting little by little. Judge Judy listens with quiet gravity, letting each word carve its rightful place into the courtroom air. And when I finally found the courage to file a claim, the plaintiff continues, that's when the messages started. The threats, the intimidation. She shakes her head slowly. She wasn't just taking my money. She was taking my peace, my dignity, my sense of safety. A single tear escapes down her cheek, but she does not hide it. Then she turns to the defendant, slowly, painfully. I didn't want to hurt you, she says, voice trembling. I didn't want revenge. I wanted you to tell the truth. I wanted the friend I thought I had. The defendant lifts her eyes, glassy, broken, and whispers, I'm sorry. But the plaintiff shakes her head gently. Don't apologize to me, not yet. Not until you understand what you destroyed. Her words settle over the room like dust after a collapse, soft, inevitable, revealing everything. Judge Judy nods. Her expression is firm but touched with a human softness, rare and meaningful. Thank you, she says quietly. Your voice matters here. The plaintiff steps back, wiping her cheek, the weight visibly lighter now that truth has finally been spoken aloud. Judge Judy turns toward the bench, eyes narrowing with purpose. It is time, she says, to measure the full weight of consequence. The defendant stiffens, because she knows the verdict is coming. The courtroom has fallen into a silence so heavy it almost hums, a silence that waits, for judgment, for closure, for truth to finally solidify into consequence. Judge Judy exhales slowly, and the sound is softer than the scrape of the gavel, but heavier than any accusation spoken today. She sits straighter, her shoulders squared, her expression settling into that rare middle ground between sternness and empathy, a place only she knows how to occupy. The defendant stands motionless, head bowed, tears drying unevenly across her cheeks. Her brother watches her with an ache that spreads through his entire posture, as though a lifetime of worry has caught up to him in one crushing moment. The plaintiff wipes the last remnants of her tears, her breathing steadier now. She has finally been heard. Judy lifts the file that has governed this unfolding tragedy. What happened in this courtroom, she begins, is not just about money. It is about trust, power, manipulation, and the dangerous comfort of believing you will never face the consequences of your actions. The defendant flinches, fingers curling inward. You did not make a single mistake, Judy continues. You made a series of choices, each one more deliberate than the last. You lied, you intimidated, you exploited, and when cornered, you tried to sacrifice someone who loved you. The brother closes his eyes. The defendant chokes back a sob. Judge Judy softens her tone, not to comfort but to ensure the truth lands exactly where it belongs. People do terrible things out of fear, out of insecurity, out of feeling unseen. But those reasons, she says, do not erase the damage. A weighted silence follows. You hurt your friend, Judy says, gesturing toward the plaintiff. You betrayed your brother, and you disrespected this courtroom. Her voice lowers. And you have spent years running from the truth that finally caught up to you today. The defendant opens her mouth, but nothing comes out, just a sound caught between apology and despair. Judy doesn't look away. I am not here to punish your fear. I am here to hold your choices accountable, because until you face the consequences, you will never change. You will never grow. You will never understand what your actions cost the people around you. The defendant grips the podium as if it is the only thing keeping her from collapsing entirely. Judy sets the file down. The soft thud echoes like a closing door, one chapter ending, another about to begin. What comes next, she says, will reflect not revenge, but justice. The audience leans in. The brother clenches his hands. The plaintiff stares straight ahead, bracing for the outcome. Judge Judy lifts the gavel slowly, the polished wood catching the light and throwing a thin line of gold across her desk. Here, she says, voice steady, unshakable, absolute, is what is going to happen. The gavel hovers, and in that suspended moment, the entire courtroom holds its breath for the final judgment. Before you hear the verdict, ask yourself, should consequences heal or should they teach? And can justice ever be both at the same time? The gavel hangs suspended, a single breath away from ending the chaos, a single strike from turning truth into consequence. Judge Judy lowers her gaze, letting the silence deepen until it becomes more than quiet. It becomes meaning. The defendant stands trembling, shoulders curved inward, as if trying to take up less space in a room she once tried to dominate. Her brother watches her through tear-stung eyes, while the plaintiff holds herself still, bracing for closure she isn't sure she deserves, but desperately needs. Then, finally, the gavel strikes. A clean, sharp crack that cuts through months of deception, fear, and emotional wreckage. Judgment for the plaintiff, Judy announces, her voice steady as marble. In the amount of $100,000. The defendant's breath collapses into a shaky sob, but Judy continues before she can speak. You will repay every stolen dollar. Immediately. A second beat. A deeper one. And this court is imposing an additional fine of $100,000 for your contempt, your threats, and your attempt to manipulate this process. The defendant covers her mouth, the weight of the words crashing into her like a wave she cannot outrun. Her knees nearly buckle, and the bailiff instinctively steps closer, not to restrain her, but to ensure she doesn't fall. Judge Judy does not soften. Your behavior today, and before today, shows a dangerous disregard for truth, for relationships, and for the law. That ends now. The plaintiff closes her eyes, a tear slipping free, not from triumph, but from release. For the first time in months, she looks like she can breathe again. Judy turns to her, her tone gentler. You were wronged deeply. This ruling cannot erase the pain, but it will restore what was taken from you. And it will remind her, she nods toward the defendant, that exploitation has consequences. The defendant sniffles, wiping her eyes with trembling fingers. I'm sorry, she whispers, not to the court, not to the world watching, but to the plaintiff. The apology, cracked and imperfect, floats uncertainly in the air. The plaintiff nods once, her expression soft but distant. Forgiveness is not here yet. It may never be. But acknowledgement, that matters.